I got to do the default layouts again. I was testing something. Hey guys, I'm just hanging out today. If you're watching, this is sort of a Q&A session. I'm just going to hang out, change some things, do some work I need to do on the FM and Axe and stuff. But if you have any questions, I guess this was mostly for like a beginner thing, but anybody has any questions about the FM3 or the Axe3 or the FCs, I can try and help you out. And we can see how it goes from here. But yeah, just hanging out today. No like specific thing intended here to show or anything, but just hanging out as a resource. If you guys have any questions, should be able to type it in chat, and I can see it. If anyone wants to type something in chat just so I can make sure it's working, it says it's all connected. I'll say hi here and see what happens. What amp do you wish was on the Axe that isn't already? I really don't have that wish, to be honest. There are so many amps in here, and this isn't some sort of stock answer or anything. Like, honestly, I have all the sounds I need. I have sort of the crunch tones I need with the Vox. I mean, I'll show you my preset real quick. So this is my clean sort of chorus detune thing with using a really low gained. I turned the input trim here. Sorry. I turned the input trim way down on this to get a really nice clean tone. I also use the USA Pre. I think it's the Triaxis clean, but I use that often for a clean tone. But I wanted more of an amp clean tone rather than like a glassy clean lately, so I've been using this one. And then my crunch tone is the top boost version of that. And I can clean it up with the volume knob. So, and then I'll show you some more things, but I haven't seen any amps out there that I feel like I'm missing. I can get a heavy tone, I can get a crunch tone. I think you can always keep adding amps. I think there's always amps to add, but at a certain point, they sound similar. So really the cab block is where you want to look at changing your overall EQ of your tone, or, you know, if you feel like you're missing something, definitely check out different IRs that are in the box, ready to go. Of course, you can buy a ton of IRs. There's a bunch of free stuff too. But for me, I'm satisfied. And anytime we get a new amp, I'm always happy. But I usually end up sticking with what I've already done. And that said, like for my gain stuff, let's see this one, if I can learn how to click with a mouse. I've been using the triple crest for my sort of rhythm distortion tone. Just before that, I was using the Tucana lead, which I really like that amp. I've been using the Friedmans forever. I've been using, what else? I mean, I just try a bunch of things. When I get bored, I just try another amp and see what I think about it. I've used the ODS for heavy, believe it or not. I've used the Herbies, all the diesels. Atomica is great. Some people swear by the Atomicas. Personally, I mean, there's what now? 200... There's 277 on here. I think there were 2 new amps added to the Axe3. This is the FM3 we're looking at right now. So yeah, long answer to the question, but me personally, really no need. I'm not like desiring any other amp or anything like that personally. But what amp do you want to see? You can always wish for it. He adds things often if they think it's like different enough than what's already in there, or something unique. And then for my lead tone, that's a very, my rhythm distortion right now is very light on the low end. And of course, these are my presets I use live when I'm playing in an actual room. I could probably tailor it a little better to sound more full and stuff on a stream like this, but for live, this is what I use. And it works, so I just stick with that. I don't like balancing different types of tones. And then my lead tone's always changing slightly with the EQ. I play a lot of acoustic duo type gigs where I'm using the piezo for an acoustic sound on this guitar. This is a Music Man Majesty, but we still do like high gain leads if appropriate, and it really has to be low treble, like it has to be really smooth on the top. Yeah, Stone Temple Pilot tones, definitely. I'm not familiar with that preamp specifically. I guarantee you can get some of those tones. I've heard some amazing Stone Temple Pilot covers with the Vox, the AC style amps, or that sort of thing. And then the power amp, sure, that handles the type of power amp distortion, of course. And we can't really change power amps per se in the Axe3 amp blocks and things like that. But playing with the master volume gives you that power amp distortion that you want. You would increase the master volume for more power amp distortion and just reduce the level to balance that out, of course. But I've heard some killer Stone Temple Pilot stuff with, years ago, even with what we had back then. So it's definitely in there. But sure, anything. Also remember that it's not only the amp they used. It's not only the amp they used to get a certain tone. It's how you play. It's sort of the effects you use, and like I said before, it's definitely the IR that you choose. I'm not the biggest IR expert. I just choose what I click around and choose what sounds good to me, and I sort of stick with it. This is what I'm currently using. Does what I need, but always check out different IRs. A lot of times the amp sounds between different amp types are super similar, like maybe 95% similar between Marshall types and things like that. It's more about the feel. I get the feel from the amp block, and I get the EQ and tone sort of from the cab block. So definitely check out the cab block. Check out different IRs that are in the box. I mean, there's over 2,000, I think, given to us already with the units. So there's a lot to look through. But yeah. So, if anybody has any questions about the FCs or the FM3, how do I do this? How do I do that? Let me know. I'm just hanging out, sort of tending my own presets and cleaning stuff up. But yeah, let me know. Let's see. So I do a lot of helping other customers and things, so there's always a lot of cleanup I need to do here. Oh, nope, I wanted to do this. Manage presets. But yeah, like I said, I'm just hanging out, waiting for questions from you guys, really. And if you have anything, let me know. All right, so get rid of those, clean this area up. All right. Oh yeah, it's deleting presets. I know how this works. Okay, let's go back to my preset here. So lately I've been using a 7-string guitar. I had one a while ago when I was playing, maybe in 2006 or so. I got one, and I didn't really know what I was doing with it. Of course, you can play low, or you can play lower, and that's, of course, the main aspect of a 7-string. But it's also the phrasing. I really wasn't into... I didn't do the same things back then that I do now. So now, and especially for like a D chord, that was the lowest D note we could get on the guitar, the 4th open string, or 3rd open string. No, 4th, because you count from the top. Sorry, long day. But now I have this low B string, and I can hit on the 3rd fret a D. Is there a way to have a kill switch on the pedals? Yes, you can do that. Let's see if I can figure that out real quick. Basically, you'd be making any block turn the volume off. I'm assuming you press it and it kills and you let go, so sort of like the Rage Against the Machine effect or something. Let me see if I can change this volume block into that. So I'm going to take off my pedal right now just to get rid of it. And you can probably do this with any block, but a volume block makes sense. But if you're stuck, I mean, if you're full already, you can use really any block. Like the cab block is a good one to do. You can scoop that volume, but I'm just going to use the volume block. I think it would be pretty much the same. So what we want to do is use a control switch. Now, a control switch is a type. There's two aspects to a control switch. It's a type of modifier. It's a source. Here we go. Control switches, right? It's a source, but it's also an assignment on the switches, of course, so you can press it. So I haven't done this in a while. Let me try and figure this out. What we want to do is when we press the control switch, it turns off. So we're going to put the maximum to 0, and when we let go, when the control switch is off, we want it to be loud. So we're going to flip-flop the minimum and maximum. So when we press, we engage the control switch, it'll turn down. And then we have these attack and release parameters here. That's how fast when you press the switch it like sort of ramps up or down. We're going to keep this low like this. And for something like this, we don't need auto engage. The block is just going to stay on and listen to what we're doing. So I think I'm doing this right. So we're going to set it to a control switch. Okay. Next, we need to actually put a control switch on one of the switches, and I'm going to put it on, let's see. We're just going to use this layout here. Well, yeah, we're just going to use this layout here. I'm going to clear this switch. So reset this. It can be on any switch, on any layout. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to clear it completely. And then on this switch, let me switch over here. So what am I on? Layout 6. Okay, so I know it's a small camera here, but I'm really going to use this switch for it here. And I'm actually going to do it on my... I have an FC on the floor as well, just so I can talk and play guitar and hit things. So I'll do it there. I'll do it in both places. But this is where we're going to put it. So we're going to go category, control switch. And we're going to set it to CS1. That's the number control switch we chose. There's, I think, 6, but we're going to use the first one. And we're going to set it to momentary. Now, that's the important part. If it's momentary, that means when you press it, it engages. When you let go, it disengages or turns off. If it's latching, when you press, it would hold the max value. And when you press again, it would get rid of the max value, go to the minimum. So we're going to keep it momentary. And this should do it right here, I think. Yep. So let me take off the delay. So that's the whole setup. Again, choose any block and choose a volume parameter. I happen to use a volume block in this example, and I use the volume parameter, but you could use the level parameter in any block. If you do that, just mind your minimum and maximum values here. I have a lot of stuff plugged in right now. It's making my edit go pretty slow. But with the values here, you want to mind your minimum and maximum. Let's see if I can get that. I don't know why that's not coming up right now. I'm trying a new setup here. So my USBs are being pretty much taxed. But always mind your minimum and maximum values. On the level parameter, it can go up to 20 dB plus. So you don't want to do that. You would set the maximum to like 0 or whatever you have it set. But that's exactly why I prefer using like a volume block, something that doesn't touch a sort of overall level parameter. Anyway, so we're going to use that. So you assign a volume parameter to the control switch, and then you assign the control switch to a physical switch location here, set it to momentary, and that's it. So let me take off this delay and see what, well, let's use a distortion tone. That's easier to... So you can see as I hold down, if I hold down the switch, the volume will turn off, and when I let go, it comes back up. So you would tap it as much as you want, like this. Whatever. It's hard to do with one hand. But if you're doing something that's rhythmic like that, you could also use a tremolo to do that. So I'll discard this preset in a bit. I'll revert it. But I do this a lot, actually, at the end of delay trails. What you can do is set a tremolo block. We'll turn that on. And what you want to use is the square wave. As you can see, it has like very rigid lines. And you would set the depth all the way to 100%. And now if I play, I think it's... Right? And I just have it set to tempo. So let me tap the tempo. And I think it would be 16th notes. And if that depth is too much, you can bring it down a little bit. Anyway, I don't know how to play that song, clearly. But yeah, you can use a tremolo block with a square LFO type, the square wave, and adjust the depth as needed. You can set the tempo, or if it's a song you always do at the same tempo, you can set the tempo specifically at a certain rate rather than using tap tempo. But yeah, something like that. That's a little slow. I don't know why it went that slow. So that's a bit aggressive. I'm gonna turn the depth down a lot and see what that sounds like. Right, so you can use the switch like we did before. Or, like I said, you can use a tremolo block set to square and adjust the depth a little bit. That one's always fun. I guess I don't have that example here, but another way I use this trem block, let me turn this down in case moving these around does something funny. But an idea I always loved is using like a long lead delay. I got this idea from a Meshuggah song. They didn't exactly do this, but this is what it sounded like to me, and I was just trying to recreate it. So let me just hook this back up. And then if you put the delay separate, just so the delay goes directly into this block. Get rid of that. And then connect this out. Let me see if I did this correctly. So if you have like a long delay, and actually I need to change, we'll just do this one. What did I do here? Why I get no sound? I did something, and I don't know what it... Oh, because I have the control switch. Let me turn that off. Oh, because yeah. That's what happens. I should have reset the whole preset just so it's back, but... What am I doing? What am I doing that's stupid? Can anyone tell me for extra points? I don't know. I don't know what I did. Let me revert the preset. I think changing all of that messed it up. My volume's up. Oh, I think I unplugged my guitar or something. I put mute on my mixer. Sorry about that. This is what live streaming is like. Things sometimes don't work. Oh, I turned the volume down because I'm an idiot. I turned the master volume down. So let me... Sorry about that. That was really stupid. Let me try and set this up again. So I'm turning it down. Remind me to turn it back up. That was very dumb. But I always turn it down when I'm moving blocks, just you don't know what it's connecting to sometimes. So just as a precaution, especially for you guys since I'm streaming. So let me just connect everything here. That was really dumb. Okay, so I'm just reconnecting things. An idea I usually have is I have the delay going, right? I'll put the trem block after it in a parallel line. Oh, I need to put the mix up since it's parallel. And this happens. It should happen. Let's see if it happens. So, sorry, that was a little sloppy, but as you can see, only the delay trails are having the tremolo on it. And then, of course, you can adjust the depth. That's a little extreme. So that in of itself is sort of like a wet, dry, wet setup. You don't necessarily need multiple speakers to do that. When you do wet, dry, wet, and you have multiple speakers in the room, you get the physicality of hearing those speakers separated. That's why people do wet, dry, wet. So they can hear just their raw tone in the middle physically behind them. And then on the left and right of them, for example, they would hear just the effects. But I find if you recorded that, that's what we'd be hearing right now. There's only two speakers left and right in a recording or a broadcast or something. So the middle would be dry, and then the effects could be on the far left and right, but there's only two sources. So wet, dry, wet is a cool idea, but it pretty much only is beneficial for the person standing right in the sweet spot. For the audience, they don't really get it. They'll get a mix of everything, just like you are here. So my wet, dry, wet this is my dry line coming through with the distorted tone, and then the wet part is just this branch right now, the delay going into the tremolo. So yeah, you could set up wet, dry, wet, but the concept itself, they did it back then because sort of in the 80s and 70s or whenever this was becoming popular, the effects units that they had at the time didn't have the best sound. So if you shoved all of your amp tone, you paid $2,000 for a boutique amp head, and then you put it into a sort of low quality effect unit back in the day, you're kind of not hearing what your amp sounded like because the whole thing is affected. So the reason wet, dry, wet sort of came to be is so they could have their full, just straight in amp coming out to them. They get all of that. And then sort of a little discounted or not as important were the effects on the side of it. But they had their raw tone and they could add effects to it. And in the room with the 3 different speakers, or even just 2, 1 dry, 1 wet, then they would get their full money's worth of the amp they paid for with its cabinet, and then they ran the effects on separate cabinets. But today we don't need to do this. Everything, especially in the modeling world with how good fractal stuff sounds, and other gear too, sounds great. You just put it where you want it. I have the delays on the side. And I have my direct amp tone, if you will, the dry, going straight through the middle, or you can pan it, whatever you want. So yeah, it's great that gear like this, like the Axe FX and other gear, can sort of help you set up things the way you used to do it, but also be open to, if you can, new ways of doing things, where I'm just in stereo right now and I pretty much have a wet, dry, wet setup in this preset for these effects and things like that. Even if I go back to how it normally is, my chorus clean sound on this scene, my regular clean, I always have this going, is a wet, dry, wet setup just with 2 speakers. I have my mix at 50-50, so I have the clean, dry tone coming straight through, and I have my detuned panned left and panned right. So this is similar to what you'd experience with a wet, dry, wet setup, for example, except to do this, you couldn't use headphones or speakers on a laptop because you'd need 3 physical speakers moving air around you. And I've done it a couple times, and I've definitely set up in just stereo with my speakers wide around me on the stage, and it sounds great. I love having physical speakers in a room making noise and bouncing off everywhere. That's the beauty of loudspeakers. The room becomes an amplifier in of itself, and how you hear it bouncing off the walls and things, that gives a great sensation. But now in the days with streaming and headphones and listening to music like that, you don't get that because there's only 2 speakers left and right. So with that, maybe you don't need an actual wet, dry, wet 3 speaker setup. I mean, you can, of course you can, but this is sort of the basis of how everyone would listen to music anyway. So I just kind of personally choose to set things up the way most people would hear it, or the most common situations, rather than stretching it and be like, no, everyone needs to hear my wet, dry, wet setup live. And it's just not possible, especially these days, of course. So try to think out of the box a little bit, and if you're used to doing something one way, try another method. Try someone else's presets just to see how they do it, and you'd be like, oh, I never thought of doing it that way, or whatever. Might be a good thing. Anyway, I have a bunch of people watching. Thanks so much. I'm just hanging out today. I'm just doing a casual hangout. If there's any questions anybody has about the FM3 or Fractal in general, I can try to answer and help you out, help you set up your gear, if you have foot switch questions or how to do things. Thanks is that Desley? For asking a bunch of questions already. But yeah, just hanging out. If anyone has any questions, let me know. I'm just not really doing anything else until you guys ask a question, so let me know. Oh yeah, none unassigned. If Skrakus from the forum is watching, let me know. You can just say hi and I can show you exactly what I meant. But I think you figured it out already. But I'll show you what you're asking on the forum. Anybody here that's watching, did you have gigs before this whole thing happened and now you haven't gigged for a while? I think back in March when everything started happening here anyway, all the lockdowns and stuff and the gigs got canceled. I was gigging in January, February, and then I actually coincidentally was going to stop for some other reasons. But it sort of worked out. I canceled my last gig just before this all started happening. Oh, in March, actually. And then I didn't touch a guitar from March to like June, July, something like that. And if you've watched any of my live streams, I haven't done one for a couple months again now. But man, my left hand is horrible. I forgot how to play. I had to rebuild some calluses, which is crazy since I've been playing forever, weekly at my gigs. But, that's how it goes. But yeah, has anybody else here lost their guitar hands? Have to rebuild it? I definitely have. All right, I'm gonna pull up some royalty-free music just to fill in some of the gaps here. But like I said, I'm hanging out for your questions. That's what I'm here for. So if you have any, let me know. Getting ready to see some local shows. Everything shut down. Yeah, I had some tickets to the 1975. Oh, sorry, my CPU just spiked, so this might lag a little bit. I guess I can turn that off for now. But yeah, I had some tickets for the 1975 at Red Rocks. It was going to be in May, and I was so excited to go, and then it all happened, and then I was so excited to cancel, and it took forever for them to cancel and refund us. They were like, no, it's still going to happen, maybe in like a week after instead. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm sorry. It is very unfortunate. Let's see, trying to find, I guess I played this last time. Let me make sure the volume is not too loud. What is this going through? Oh, it's going through my speakers. That won't help. All right, I'm just going to play some background music, I guess. But yeah, like I said, I'm just hanging out waiting for your questions. So if you have anything, let me know. What am I doing here? F sharp 7, sharp 9. Favorite chord. Do I mix different cabs together much? So like I said, I'm not a big IR expert at all. So I'm not the best one to do this, but for my main sound, I do mix two IRs together. I try to stick to factory presets, just like if I help people with presets or I can give them a starting point, it's on the machine. They don't need to load like a custom one. But really what I do is I start with one IR only. Let me mute this all the way. I start with just one IR, so I'll mute this one. And we won't pan it, of course, so we can hear it. And I listen to what it sounds like. So it's kind of hard when you're first starting out and you're choosing an amp and a cabinet. It's hard to choose both at the same time because they depend on each other. So personally, let's go to a blank preset and I'll do this real quick. So let me set this up real quick. Input, we're only going to use a few things here. Output. Okay, and then I'll put an amp and cab block. Now, when I like choosing the Friedman amp. It's a distortion amp, a high gain amp, And to me, this just is a great amp to start with. And with distortion, you can hear the harmonics a little bit better. So I'll just choose the Friedman HBE. I just tend to always start with that. By now, I know what it sounds like at default settings. I don't change anything really. And then I'll drop in a cab block. And notice your preset is loading around 80 or so. Is there a certain CPU load that we should try to avoid? Yeah, I'll get back to the cabs real quick. Let me address that. So yes, my main preset is right around 80, and that's about the limit you want to stay at. They're always trying to make the CPU come down. In the last few firmware releases, it has come down in all the blocks. Every firmware, I do a chart for myself, which I go through every single block and type and look at the CPU of each one, and it's come down a lot over the years, over the firmware. Sorry, over the different firmware. So yeah, 80% is right around where you want to stay at as far as maxing out your preset. The other 20% is for running the screen, running the audio processing, the actual stuff it's doing. So 80% is a good limit to stick around. And again, they're always trying to bring it lower with every firmware revision. So let's see, back to the cabs. So I stick with the Friedman HBE and then the cabs, all defaults. And the first one you'll always load up is like a 4-inch speaker, so you don't want that. We'll just choose something. So if I'm looking for a new cab, let's say I'm doing that today, I'll just start anywhere. Doesn't really matter. Let's do a 2x12. Well, I know those actually sound very high-endy, so I'm going to stay away from that. But let's look for a 4x12. That's what everybody wants to start with, right? So we'll get in the 4x12 area, and let's just, I don't know this one. I've never tried this one. 4x12, 3 monkeys with a 414. Let's just see what it sounds like. I'm going to turn down real quick. Okay, so that's no adjustment. Everything should be pretty much default. I haven't changed anything except the level right there. Right? And we're using this cab. So this is sort of my basis of sound. I listen to this. And I say, okay, I mean, that's usable. You could use that in a mix pretty much right there. Maybe a little less low end, but you can mix that down later. Anyway, from here, I will just choose different cabs and see what they sound like. So we started here, and I hear a bit of a mid-range honk. Now, that's not coming from the amp. It's probably coming from the cab, the IR. And that's not a bad thing. It's not like the honk or that mid-range frequency is bad. It might sit in the mix really, really well. You should try it with a mix. But from here, I'll just see what the other ones do. So let's try all of these. Total big difference right there. And when you open the picker, if you click this little pin here, it'll keep it open as you click. Very different from the sort of A cab, I guess it should be. And just by changing that, just by changing the cab, the sound is changing drastically. And the amp hasn't changed. The amp's pretty much a default, and you can hear the different things. Now, the funny thing is, I can show these 5 different cabs, just these 5 to different people, and they will all choose different ones that they think sounds better, and they'll all say a certain one, I can't believe anyone would use that. So, I mean, someone might really like this, and someone else might absolutely not like it. Okay, and you just kind of gotta learn what the IRs sound like. So do you have to do all 2,000 or whatever IRs? No, of course not. Hopefully you find one before you click through everything. But that's how I do it. I start with the Friedman HBE because it's like a bass Marshall-ish type tone. I know what that sounds like. And then I click around to different cabs and play. And if you can, have some music playing in the background, either similar to what you play, or if you have a recording of your own band, of course, that's the best. just play it while you're auditioning cabs, and you can see how it fits in with the rest of your band. You know, that's the key here. Right now, I'm not playing any music, and the guitar sounds a certain way, but if I add music to it, it'll change what the guitar sounds like because of the other frequencies of the bass, the drums, the vocals, whatever. Anyway, let's say we like this one. Okay, that's a good one. So we'll stick with this. I'll close this, and that's my first cab. Now I'll repeat the same thing. I'll just mute this, go to a second cab if we're going to blend them or mix them. And again, this is just my method. We'll go and pick another one. So wait, we were at 326. So let me go back to factory 2, 326, or that area. So let's say this sound has sort of a low end that we like, and then we want to blend in something with a high end. So where were we? The ones we used before, those monkey things, had some really sharp sounds. Let me just find one real quick. So now I'm looking for something with a little more high end. Yeah, that one has an interesting sound. So let's choose this one. I'm just doing this quickly for time, of course. And let's just say that's the other one we like. So now if we play both of them at the same time, not panned, we'd be blending them. So let's hear what that sounds like. Now it's hard to tell, for me anyway, what the difference is between both of them on, one of them on. We'll just mute that real quick. So if I'm in a stereo setup, what I like to do is pan them. Now this is different than blending. I know that's what we were talking about, but I'll pan them full left and full right and just see what that does in my ears. To me, that's already sounding better. It has a wide range, slightly different EQ on both sides, and that's what gives sort of a wider feel. In my ears, the left side sounds a little louder, so let's turn that down. So that's a little more balanced to me. I see your layout question. I'll answer that in just a sec. Okay, so that's assuming you have a stereo setup. If you don't, just keep them center panned and adjust them as you need to. So what you can also do with the levels is turn one down and slowly bring it up and see what sort of qualities it brings to the mix. So there, it's pretty much off, and we're going to roll it in slowly. So to me, the mixture of those two at that balance right now, to me, that sounds better and more full than just the two on its own, even just center. You can also go and align them if you want to. This is an interesting thing. Again, I'm not a big expert on IRs, but you can see the waves here are slightly off. Now, some people like them slightly off. Some people like them aligned. It really depends on what you want. So we're going to adjust distance 1 and just see what happens. So as they get more out of phase, this is a little extreme. Typically, I don't think you have them this out of phase, not aligned. The sound changes, but really there's no rules. Excuse me. Really, there's no rules. If you like this sound, use it. So for me, I don't like things too sharp in the high end. So this actually sounds good to me. So again, I'm not a big IR expert. That's how I would blend two cabs. Personally, I'd usually try to find something that has a lot of low end and then another one that has a lot of high end, or, you know, some sort of difference. If they're similar or even the same, you won't get much change by blending them, as far as I know. I'm sure some people have many differences. Or if you have an IR set that has like a 57 capture and then a 421 capture or something, different mics, and that's the only difference. Yeah, do the same thing. I would load both, turn one all the way down. I mean, have them both active, turn one all the way down with the level, play, and slowly roll it up. And that's how I really do anything. I slowly increase the level or whatever the parameter is to see how it blends and find a sound that I like. Now, I know I did this on a high gain tone, so if you're a clean guy, you can do the same thing. Find a clean amp that you're familiar with or something that you like, just the sound of, and do the same thing. I just like doing the high gain stuff because I hear the harmonics a little better. And if I do change to a clean tone, generally speaking, we'll see if this is true, it sounds good after I've created it with a higher gain tone. Again, I can just hear the harmonics a little better. So now we just did Shiver Clean. Let me turn up the volume a little bit. And to me, that sounds like what I want. I just find the balance that I like to hear with the two cabs with a higher gain tone. And of course, from here, I'm going to go back to the HBE, excuse me, Friedman. Yeah, we got to turn down a lot. I am so sorry about that. My mouse slipped. I am very sorry. That's what I tried to avoid. My apologies. Gosh. No playing guitar while I adjust volume. My apologies. So there's that. You can also play with the proximity knob, which gives you more low end. It's as if you move the microphone closer. We'll do that on one of the cabs. We can do it on the other cab too, just see what happens. So that's way too much low end. I'm just kind of showing you an extreme example. But yeah, you can adjust so many things just here. There's all the preamp stuff, which honestly I don't use too much. So you can adjust, add a mic preamp as if it was like in the studio. Adjust the drive and saturation, EQ there, low cut, high cut. I didn't even talk about that. This is where I do a lot of my sculpting if I need to get rid of low end in a sound. And more so high end if it's too shrill. And another tip when you're doing EQ adjustments, don't make a quick decision on what you did. Your ears have to reset. Our ears are very impressionable and our mind tells it what to think a lot too. So if we're at our default here around 10K and this sounds, you know, bright, and then I dump it way down, initially I might go, wow, there's no high end in it anymore. This is a worthless sound. But then you take like a 5-second break, go back and play. It might be actually exactly what you're looking for. I see the questions coming in. I'll jump in just a sec. Almost done with this one. But so there's more high end here. I'm going to dump it way down and it's going to immediately sound bad, most likely, because you're comparing to what you just heard to a new thing. And our ears sort of need a little time to reset. So let me do that. Okay, that definitely sounded weird just because I had a lot of high end. But this is, to me, honestly, a usable tone in certain songs or sections. You know, stuff like that. Clearly, I'm doing examples and going quickly, but try not to make quick decisions on an EQ change you made. Give it a few seconds, go get a drink of water, come back. Honestly, you'll come back and play and be like, oh, wow, this sounds good. And this happens day to day with the same preset. You'll be like, oh, it sounds like total butt today. It's totally bad. And you wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, it sounds great. I didn't change anything. Our ears are constantly changing, so give it a little time. Okay, we had some other questions. If you mistakenly reset all layouts, do you mean your foot controller layouts? If so, they are gone. Or if you've deleted a preset, I mean, it is gone, but you need to back up regularly. So you would go to Tools and Fractal Bot there, and you can back up there super easy for your FC layouts specifically. Once you settle on something, go to Edit, Export All Layouts. Just save it on your computer so it's somewhere. So even if you don't delete them all, if you just made a change at the gig real quick because you didn't know what you were doing, you were rushing, and you're like, oh no, I need to get that back. It's on your computer, granted, not at the gig, so maybe don't adjust things at the gig if you don't need to, but you can always return to it if you've backed it up. So the FractalBot full backup, of course, will back everything up, your presets and your FC layouts and any global settings like your setup menus and stuff like that. But if you're talking about just your FC controller layout, when you can, export all layouts. It'll make one file with everything. If you happen to lose them on your unit, just dump them back in with import all layouts and you're good to go. So do make backups frequently with any digital gear, with your phone, your DAW, or this sort of thing. So I saw this question come up on the forum recently. Do you play with the impedance curves when swapping cabs? Personally, I do not. So like I said, I'm not a big cab expert, IRs and cabs. So I might not be the best to ask about this. But no, I don't. Personally, I just leave it how it is. Impedance is an interesting thing that I don't fully understand. But it definitely has to do with the interplay between the amp, the load of the power amp, and the cabinet, the speaker itself. So some people are saying, oh, why is all this speaker stuff in the amp block? It's kind of because the amp block determines this. The speaker does too, of course, but the speaker is just there with a load, waiting to receive the load from the power amp. So the amp is actually what determines a lot of these things. Something like that. Again, I'm no expert on that. But I'll get to your statement there, Mr. Music. But I don't. But definitely feel free to. And that's my approach with many of the knobs, especially in the amp block. When I'm helping new users with this, they always come in and say, oh my God, there's so many knobs in the amp block. And I said, point to me the ones that you know what they are. And they point to bass, middle, treble, drive, master volume. I said, okay, just use those. Just use those. And at some point, learn one new knob if you want to. So then they'll look on the wiki or look up transformer high frequency or transformer, whatever, low frequency, impedance curves, things like that. But just learn one at a time. Don't try to do everything at once. It usually is not possible because it takes years to learn how an amp works, or you need to study it specifically. So don't worry about all the knobs and everything. Just take it one day at a time, use what you know. But at the same time, don't be afraid to try something. Just don't expect to understand everything in the first day you get your Axe, because it's an amplifier circuit, that's modeled. There's a lot of science behind that, and I don't understand a bunch of these things either. But as far as the impedance curve, let's just try it. Again, I don't change it much because I like the sound when it's defaulted, but let's just see what it sounds like. 4x12 Friedman. Let's try something else, a 1x12 Eminent. I'm just going to try different things, see what they sound like. So the impedance curve is definitely changing the frequencies. You can see the graph change. And again, it's, to me, a pretty subtle change. And honestly, I would do, if I'm going for EQ changes in general, I would just go to the output EQ and change what I want. As far as the impedance, if you know what you're doing here, or you have ideas about this, go ahead and change it, of course. Do what you want and prefer. But to me, I guess it's my concept. I'm not personally going for the most authentic sound ever. Oh, it says 4x12 5153, a PV cab, it needs to sound like that specifically, accurately. Like, that's just not how I do it. Some people do, and that's great. And there's a lot of tools here to help you do that. But at the end of the day, I'm just using, I'm looking for usable sounds. Something that inspires me, something that makes me want to play, something that fits in with my band or whatever I'm doing. So if this curve works, I would choose it. But to answer the question specifically, I don't personally change that. I don't need to do the research to see what cab I'm loading, what speakers were in the cabinet, how were they wired, ohm ratings, and all of that. That's cool. For me, I don't need to do that. I get usable sounds not even thinking about that. But yeah, like you said, it's so great that it's in here. And if you want to, you can. But for me personally, and honestly for many, I would say, I've been teaching the Axe3 and using it for over 10 years now. I've worked with many, many people. I've worked with like major artists, some intermediate people, weekend warriors, bedroom play. I've worked with a range of people. And honestly, in my experience, I'm just going to say, I don't think too many people need to worry about this stuff. I do think sometimes it's easy to make this much harder, much more difficult than it needs to be. Again, because the knobs are there, some people just need to turn them and change it. And that's great. Again, it's there. You can do it. But in my opinion and my experience of helping people over 10 years, once we sort of strip that away and I kind of convince people to try not touching it, they're like, oh, wow, I played my gig and it sounded great and I didn't need to do anything. And I had my preset in 5 minutes and it was great. That's something I hear often. So go ahead and adjust all the knobs. Of course. Do all of that. But at the end of the day, you want to play music. And if something's bothering you and you want to find it, of course, fix that. But get to a usable sound, something you can just play. And that's the goal, I feel. That's what I feel the goal is. So couldn't find layouts to download. So is this KRAC music? Crackus music? I'm not sure what that is. But yeah, are you talking about the foot switch layouts specifically? If you're talking about the foot switch layout specifically, they're on the unit. I've seen people, okay, cool. I've seen people say that it loaded blank. All you need to do on here is go to your setup menu. That's the E knob. Okay, and then I'm going to blow up the screen here. Then go to the FC menu, hit enter. And then all you do, I'm already there, but you'd normally be on this easy page. All you do is page all the way right. And it says load factory default layouts and settings. So this will change all of the FC, the switch related stuff. If you hit enter, it'll reset that and load your default layouts. So just do that, hit enter. It'll take a little bit, especially if you're connected to edit. It'll take a little while to update because it has to update all 12 switches of all 9 layouts. Yeah, it's there. And then when you're done, hit exit. I did it just before we started, or right after I started, actually. I had another layout set up. But then you get to your default layouts and you should be all set. So Mr. Crail says, what speakers are you using for your monitoring? So right now, I'm using your speakers for monitoring. This live stream, I have the FM3 plugged in with XLR cables to my mixer, and my mixer sending a signal to my computer over USB, and it's coming through your speakers or headphones, whatever you're listening to now. Just want to clear that up. For me personally on gigs, lately I've been using the QSC CP8 speakers. Like I said, I play a lot of acoustic sort of duo setups, not loud metal with drums or anything right now. So those have been really great. They sound pretty flat to begin with. They're not FR-FR. They are full range speakers, but not FR-FR, full range flat response. Have I tried the Headrush FR-FR? I haven't tried the Headrushes specifically, but I have the RCF brand. They have a popular 12-inch speaker, the NS12 SMA, NC12 SMA, something like that. Haven't used it in a while. It's a very big speaker. I love it. But lately I've been going stereo, so I wanted a lot of 2 smaller speakers. They're 8-inch. And I set them at the gig in front of me as monitors. My vocals come out of it and my guitars and my partner's guitars and vocals. And I have stereo for myself. at the gig, totally sounds good. I send a mono signal from my mixer to the house, and they get a mono feed because that's all they need, and totally sounds great. I love it. So that's what I've been using. I've also used the NX12 SMA. That's what it is. When I need to be a lot louder. That's a full range flat response speaker. That one's great. So FR speakers are interesting because they are flat. So you're going to plug in and play and be like, oh, there's no bass, there's no high end, because they're level as much as possible. Well, that's because you put it in there. You put the high end that you want in the speaker. That's the whole point of having a flat response speaker. There's no bumps already predetermined. You put what you want. So if you want more low end, on your mixer, I would put more low end or whatever you're using. If you're plugging straight in, you can use the global EQ on the unit. That sort of thing there. But just a heads up there with full range flat response speakers. So no, I haven't used the head rush. I have used a CLR once or twice. A friend of mine had it, and a client I was helping had one, and they sound great too. Big and loud and flat response, and then again you dial in what you want it to sound like as far as EQ is concerned. What power amp would you recommend for an Axe3 XL Plus? Are you using a power amp to a guitar cabinet, or are you using a full range sound? Like what do you want there? There's just so many options. It's so hard to recommend a power amp or even speakers in general because they're all so different, and it depends what you want to hear. So if you want to use a real guitar cab for a guitar cab, okay, yeah. Because I do the full range route, I actually haven't bought or used too many sort of guitar specific ones. A lot of people enjoy the Fryette power amps. A lot of people are using the, is it Mission Engineering? No, it's Matrix, excuse me. I think Mission makes their own powered speaker, but Matrix power amps, of course. Matrix power amps are cool. They have a 1-rack unit version. They have a 2-rack space version. Really, you just want to get power to the cabinet. And then you kind of separate into two camps. Do you let the Axe3 or the FM3 do all the power amp modeling for you, which most people do, and therefore they get sort of a clean power amp, like the Matrix amps or things like that? Or do you want a tube power amp that's super heavy and expensive, and then you turn off the power amp modeling on the modeling side, the Axe side, and use it from the tube amp? If you do that, then you're kind of back in your regular guitar world where you need to turn up a lot, very loud, to get the sort of tube saturation you want or may want from the power amp. So a lot of people these days are going sort of clean power amp like the Matrix, or even like a PA power amp, QSC, Crown, those sort of things. Plug that into their guitar cabinet and let the Fractal take care of sort of the power amp modeling or the power amp side of things. Yeah, a lot of people are using those sort of power amps in a pedal, super compact, but they don't offer much power. I mean, if a power amp has to be this big with 4 power tubes, 6L6s or something, to get you as loud as a drummer, and then you get a tube or even a solid state power amp that's like the size of a pedal, I mean, clearly it's not going to create the same sort of energy and output as something dedicated and huge. So just keep that in mind. If you can, I mean, clearly we're under crazy times here, but in the past, I would say take your Axe3 to your music store if they allow you to demo things, and just plug it in there. You don't want to buy and return everything. So if they can set you up with a couple of power amps and a cabinet and say, hey, I'll buy something from you guys. Can you give me like half an hour to an hour to try some things out? A lot of times they'll say, yeah, go for it. Let's get you some things, plug you in, and see what you prefer. So yeah, I don't have a specific recommendation on a power amp, as I typically use powered speakers, powered PA speakers, like QSC, Yamaha, those sorts of things. And a lot of times I'm plugging straight into the PA system at the gig anyway, which is just a powered speaker system at some respect. So it's all full range for me. So I don't do too much of the guitar cabinet and guitar power amp sort of stuff. But I've seen a lot of good feedback from Mission engineering if you want to keep them separate, like a power amp and your own guitar cab. Yeah, so let me just, I'll just save it. Let me go back to my preset here. But yeah, looks like a bunch of people are here from YouTube. Thanks so much for watching on this. We have a couple on Twitch and Facebook. I'm multi-streaming to all platforms at the same time, so thanks for watching. Again, this is just a hangout for you guys to ask questions about things, setups on the FM3 or the switches or things like that. So nothing too big planned here. Feel free to come and go. It's super casual here. But yeah, just hanging out if you have any questions. Let's see. I haven't done this in a while. Let's see. Be quiet. Multi-delay. Volume pedal before the Axe3. Problems with that, or should it be fine? I have an EV1. Okay, so when you use the EV1, it is both an analog volume pedal and an expression pedal. In my opinion, I honestly see no benefit at all for using it for its analog components. There's no reason, in my opinion, to plug the guitar into the pedal so the analog volume goes to the pedal, then an analog cable into the Axe. I can't think of any reason, because as an expression pedal where it's controlling it electronically, you can do so much more and you're not limited to the one position. So let me show that real quick. Let me save this. This is actually my main preset. So let me save it somewhere so I can start editing it. I have a separate dedicated volume pedal. So I don't understand then why you would put a volume pedal before the Axe3. Oh, you have an EV1 coming and you want to use it for wah and other modifiers. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, you could do both, of course. Excuse me, hold on. Had to cough real quick. But let me get rid of some of this stuff just to simplify this, what I'm gonna demonstrate here. So, like I said, if you're used to using an analog volume pedal in front of it, sure, go ahead, use it. That's no problem. You can do it. It's the Axe3 doesn't know about it. You're just using, it's as if you're using your guitar volume knob because it's before the Axe3, you know. Sorry, just trying to streamline this a little bit. Let me actually delete this. But one of the benefits of using it as an expression pedal or using a volume pedal as an expression is what I'm going to show you right now. So I'm going to go to my lead sound. I deleted my delay. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Let me put that back because that's going to affect how this sounds. So right now I'm actually using an expression pedal on the floor. You can't see it because it's on the floor, but I'm going to roll it up and you'll hear that I'm using it. And it's using this volume block here, right? And what's really nice is that as I roll it up, the increase in the level goes into the delays and I can fade it out real quick. That's my acoustic. You You know, for something like that, or like long notes like. I'm using the volume pedal and turning it up and down. If you have an analog volume pedal in front of the Axe3 or even a real amp, I'm going to do that. What you're doing is changing the amount of signal going into the amp. Maybe you know this, but just explaining this since we're talking about it. So before, when I turned the volume up and down, it was the entire tone turning up and down, the full distortion level, the full high gain sound, just changing in volume. But if I have it in the front here, and I know some people like to use it this way, but I'm just showing you that there is a difference. Watch as I turn it up. That's my acoustic again. You hear how it's like lower gain, and the volume isn't that much quieter. It's because I'm just sending less signal to the amp, to the input. It would be the same thing as rolling down your guitar knob volume. So if you like this sort of thing, that's cool, but you don't get the effect I had before. So it's not much quieter, but there's less gain. So really all this is right now, this volume pedal ahead of the amp or in front of the Axe3, if you're using an analog pedal, is really just an input gain control, you know, something like that. Look, as soon as I roll it up and the first moment you can hear it, it's loud. It's not quiet like it was before. As I roll it up, the gain is going to increase because I'm letting the full guitar signal finally get to the amp. But as you can see, as I turn the pedal up and down, like look over here, the volume isn't really changing. It's just the amount of gain. So again, that's an effect you could use, but as a volume pedal before the Axe3 using an analog connection, to me, again, I just don't see the point when you, one, can do it in the preset itself like we just did, and then you're limited. For clean tones, that can work because clean tones really don't compress as much because there's not as much gain. So if I change to my clean lead preset, let's see what happens here. The volume should get quieter and louder. If you're mostly a clean player, it might work out for you. So it does work there, but that's because, again, a clean amp, if you hit it harder or, you know, with your settings, it won't distort more. But with a high gain amp, it's already distorted. It's loud the moment you let guitar signal come in. That's like barely on and it's just loud. There's no gain. So personally, I prefer placing the volume pedal after the amp. Most people do. And now when I play, the entire high gain sound just moves up and down in volume. You know, I'm actually getting a volume change with the volume pedal. You can't do that if you have the volume pedal before analog plugged in. It just won't do that. So can the EV1 be assigned per preset, like volume in one preset and wah in another? Absolutely, of course. That's definitely the benefit of using it as an expression pedal versus a analog volume that's only in the front, only affecting, you know, that sort of thing. So all you would do is, let's say this preset, I'm using it as a volume. I select the port I've plugged it in. It happens to be in my FC on the ground, and I've assigned it to volume, you know. And then if I were to switch presets, I just wouldn't assign a volume block in the preset at all, or I would only have it assigned to the wah. Now, here's something I haven't really done too much. I'm going to try it. I personally haven't done this yet. So what you can do, well, that might be trouble because the volume would be behind. sorry, I was going to try something sneaky, but I don't think it's going to work. You can assign a wah and a volume in the same preset as well, using the multiplexer block. It's a little advanced. I don't really want to go into it right now. A lot of people on the forum have talked about it, but there are ways to assign the same pedal in the same preset even to different things. You can bypass the block. So now I have no volume control, but if I add a wah, let's just do that real quick. Again, this is sort of a quick example. I'm going to assign the control parameter to the same pedal. I can turn down a little bit now that I don't have my volume control. But now the wah is controlled by the same exact pedal. I only have one down here. And I could bypass the blocks if I want to change it. So now I'm controlling volume. And if I go back to the wah block, you'll see it's still moving when I move the pedal, but because the block is bypassed, I've chosen to turn it off. It's only affecting one thing at a time. That's a quick way to do it. There's ways to optimize this, but I don't think I can talk about it right now with my current setup. But yes, like you said, if you do use different presets, I just don't have it set up right now. Absolutely, one preset is your wah preset. You change to that, and your pedal engages the wah. Now, there's something called auto engage. If you're new to this, you might not know. There's something called auto engage, meaning instead of having to press a button, you can have it so when you move your pedal a particular way, the block turns on, and when you're done, you return it to a certain position, and the block turns off. So I'll set that up real quick. I'll do medium, so it'll turn on in a medium speed, and I'll have it so it's off when it's heel down. This off value is all the way down. That's when the block will turn off. So right now I'm heel down, and the block is off. And I'm going to move the pedal, and it should turn on. It's still on now because I have the pedal all the way up. I'm going to pull it down and the wah will eventually turn off. And that's how to do auto engage with that. Now, again, there are some tricks to having both volume and wah in the same preset with the same pedal. I can't go through that right now. I'd have to think about it a little bit, and I'm not set up for that. But there are ways to kind of do that sort of thing in general. So just a heads up there. Let me get rid of that. Yeah, line 6, Insane. I played that a lot when I was younger. Yeah, auto engage is definitely something you want to use with whammies and wahs and things like that. Oh yeah, I'm here. If you have another question, no problem. But yeah, the line 6 pod, man, I got that and it was great. I wish I still had it. I wish I could have kept everything I've ever had, of course, but you got to sell stuff as you go to get the other stuff, of course. But yeah, I mean, the Insane amp is pretty wild. I personally can't see using it in an actual band situation. A lot of high end. I think it was good for recording or sort of effect type tones. Depending, I mean, if you use it, great. But I didn't have a use for it specifically in actual use in my band, even when we were playing heavy stuff. But it's fun, I'll tell you that. With the FM3 only having one pitch block, is it possible to have more than one way to activate the block? I'm not quite sure what you mean. Is it possible to have more than one way to activate the block? For example, scene 2 turns on the block with channel A active. Scene 3 turns on the block with channel B active. Sure, I mean, that's just sort of channel basics, if you will. So in scene 1, so a scene, let's start there. There's a preset, and the preset is in charge of what blocks are in your preset and how they're connected, okay? That's a preset. It determines what blocks you have to play with at the moment. Scenes, there are 8 scenes in each preset. There's always 8. You don't need to use them all. Just use whatever you want. Is there a way on another scene to activate momentarily with a control switch using channel C? The second pitch block acts as channel 3. I bring it in and out with a momentary while I'm soloing. Oh, I see. So you have a specific effect. You happen to have a specific effect on the second pitch block as a momentary thing, like maybe a harmony, right? I guess, yeah, it's just YouTube chatting, YouTube chat. That's totally fine. It's all good. You're not spamming or anything. I get it. But yeah, so you happen to have, so let's say you didn't have 2 pitch blocks and you only had 1. And you happen to have an effect on that 1 pitch block that you bring in and out momentarily, right? What you're asking is, since there is only 1 pitch block and you need to use 2 pitch blocks, is there a way to momentarily bring in a channel, I think. I think that's what you're asking. And I think the answer is no. I think the answer is no, but let me think real quick, because channels are meant as, you know, different settings of the same type of effect or block, so pitch. So if I had detune on A, harmony on B, what you would do, like, let's just put it just so it's visually there, dual harmony. Let's say you always rock channel A like I do on this clean tone. But then while you're playing with that detune on, you also want to kick on another pitch effect, right? Is that what you're asking? And on the Axe3 or whatever you're using, you happen to use a second pitch block to kick that in and out. Oh, I get it. Okay. Scene 4, I just need to come in when I hit. Okay, so scene 2 is like something. Scene 3 is another pitch block setting. Got it. And then scene 4, the pitch isn't necessarily on in scene 4, but you hit the control switch to make it turn on momentarily. I get it, I think. Okay, let me think. Let's see. I mean, potentially, yes. So is the problem you're having is that the control switch affects all the other scenes? Is that the problem you're running into? So if I do have a control switch still set up. So let's see. Let's do 1 will be detune and 2 will be harmony. Let me just set it up real quick. Okay, just something to set up. But instead of it being on when I get to scene 2 in this example, you want to kick it in with the control switch. I think you can do that. So let's see. How would I do this? I would probably do the bypass parameter on the... Let me work it out first, and then if you don't catch it, I'll explain what I did. But let me just see. So we want to change this. Yeah. And then in the modifier, I only want it to be on channel B. So on channel A. Yeah, I understand. Let me see if this works. So yeah, here, I think I've done it. I think I figured it out. So my example is a little bit different channels and scene numbers and stuff. But in scene 1, I have the pitch block set to channel A. And it's my detune that I always use. Okay, on scene 2, we'll call this my harmony scene, and I've set it to dual harmony, and I've set the bypass control, so when I hit my control switch, it turns on. Let me do something really bad sounding just so we know it's like turning on. Actually, it doesn't sound that bad, but you can tell it's on. Right? So is that what you were looking for? Scene 1, pitch block is on with channel A, detune. And then scene 2, pitch block is off initially. But when I hit the control switch, whatever it is, in this case harmony, turns on. I think that's what you were describing. Let me know. Ooh, that is nice. Okay, so let me run through, since that is what it is, let me run through it real quick, how I did that. So in the first scene, you just assign the pitch to channel A, that's normal, right? In the second scene, you assign pitch to B. And to turn it on and off, I chose to use the bypass command. That's, of course, a good one. So we're not using auto engage or anything. We're just telling it to turn on and off. So with anything else, you right-click it, the modifier menu comes up. Now, the important setting here is this channel setting. With the Axe3 generation and before, when you assigned a modifier to any parameter, it was active in, well, I guess it would be just the Axe3. It would be assigned to all channels. On the Axe3, it was X and Y. Here we have A through D on most things. But all was the only way to do it. So if it was set to all, if I go back to scene 1, the modifier is there and the pitch block is off until I use the control switch. But if I go to the bypass control, and you could do this from scene 1, channel A, but it makes more sense to work through it in the channel you're doing it from. Right click, go to the modifier menu, assign it to the control switch, put the control switch on the physical switches, of course. And then the channel, you just choose B. Oh, and this actually answers the question. I forgot about this. I knew I was thinking something before, to use wah and volume in the same preset. I forgot who asked that, but if you're still here, or if it was you, I can show you. But this control is so important. So instead of all, we're going to choose just channel B. Only channel B listen to this modifier. And we happen to choose channel B in scene 2, right? So because of all those happens, we happen to choose those things. When channel B is selected, the modifier will only be listened to with channel B, and now we have it. Ah, yes, it was critical. Okay, let me show you that. But this reminded me how to do it, I think. I'll see if I'm correct. But yeah, this channel option here in the modifier page is so important. I'm so glad it came to the Axe3 when it did, and it made its way to the FM3 as well. So this is what you want to do. You want to choose it. So channel B, it's only channel B that listens to the control switch. Everything else, A, C, and D, will just be on or off as the scene change. So that's really cool. So let me turn that modifier off just so we're not mixing things up. So let me work this out again and then I'll explain it, but I'm pretty sure this is what to do. So let me add the wah back in. And let's see. So yeah, this is one way, this is one way to do it, where you would use scenes to determine if you're using volume or wah. So same thing, I'll go to scene 1 and we'll use the volume pedal in scene 1 only. So we got to turn off the wah. There's the volume pedal in action. And what we've done, so if you don't have your FM3 yet or something, this might be confusing, but just an overview. You'd go to the parameter you want to control, in this case volume, right click on it in edit, and then you choose the source. And let's just say I'm only going to choose channel A. So when the volume block is on channel A, it'll respond to the expression pedal. Okay, that's important. So it's working. If I chose channel B right now, it shouldn't work. I'm moving the pedal, you can't see it, but I'm moving it, but it's not changing on the screen. That's because I've chosen channel B here, but I told it only when on channel A, listen to the pedal. So a similar thing, we're going to assign scene 2 to be our wah scene. And what we need to do there is for the wah block, we're going to have it turn on. So turn it on in scene 2. And we're going to say whenever you're on channel B, shouldn't be the same channel. When you're on channel B, for example, then listen to the pedal. Only when you're on channel B for the wah block. So in scene 2, we're setting B. and you can see it's moving. Oh, I still have the pitch on. Sorry about that. That was weird sounding. But my volume pedal was set to listen to channel A, so it's also turning down. So in this second scene, we just need to have them opposite. So it's easy to follow. In scene 2, both are on B, wah and volume. But I've set the wah, when it's on B, to listen to the pedal. And I've set the volume, if it's not on A, so if it's on B, to not listen to the pedal. You can see it's not moving. If we go back to scene 1, where I've told the volume pedal on A to listen, but I've told the wah to not listen if it's on A, right? So you can do that sort of thing. So scene 1 is my volume pedal scene. And any other scene I want to be volume pedal and not wah, just set the volume block to channel A. And make sure you set the wah block to channel A as well. In any scene that I want the wah on and not the volume, set both to channel B. Now they're not linked. It's just coincidence I set both to B. They just happen to be opposite settings. I think you understand. So anything set to B, the volume won't work, but the wah will. And of course, make sure it's on. I'm pretty sure you can still use auto engage here too, like we did before. And then you pedal down and it turns off. Got a tune real quick. But yeah, so we have auto engage on the wah, no volume pedal. And if we go to scene 1, we have no wah because it's not responding, but we have volume. So yeah, there are ways to do it. I just couldn't quite remember it when we were talking about it before. But that's one way to do it. There's another way using a block called the multiplexer. Basically, it selects what row input to listen to and pass on to the rest of the grid. But that would require, I think, the volume pedal going up. So most people use that for a wah and or a whammy in the same preset. That's what I was thinking of, and I was going to miscommunicate that. But I caught myself, and I remembered how to do it, and that's how to do it. Or that's one way to do it, and you're definitely using scenes there to choose wah versus volume in that respect. Okay, let me go back to my preset. See, me, I've grown up to be a volume pedal always kind of guy. If I want a wah, I would, well, actually, let me show you this real quick. This might even help you out. If I want a wah pedal, I would add a second expression pedal just because I always need volume the way I play. My bands are usually very dynamic, so we're just not hitting it the same volume the entire time. So if I have this lead sound, and this was the full volume, we might be playing a delicate moment where I want this high gain sound, but not as loud. I have to have a post volume pedal like I have. But let's say you do want, you know, a wah pedal or access to a wah. I showed a video on this a while ago on my YouTube channel, but you can use a control switch to do a wah. So all you would do is set, wrong one, go to the control, set it to your control switch. I happen to have one set up here. And then I usually put some damping just so it's not an immediate thing. There's a little bit of ramping there. Let's just see what that sounds like. And I also use auto engage on it, actually. So we'll go medium position. And if I press this control switch, I'm actually going to pause edit just because it communicates. Well, let's see what happens. Let's get some. So I'm using my volume pedal. So it's working, but the damping I put was way too high. Let me see. Bring it down a lot. Oh, that works. So with the button, I'll switch views real quick. With this button, I'm actually making the wah work. and this can work. If you need to park the wah at certain places, it doesn't always work. But for me, the way I use wah pedal, usually like just accentuating notes. And it totally works. It's great. So if I need a wah for the way I use it lately, you know, for funk tunes or where it's really, you're just going whack-a-ticka, whack-a-ticka, you know, you're doing a very common rhythm. I'm not really using the range of it. I just need it to sweep through the range of the wah. And I just assign it to a switch. It should work on my clean as well. And then I happen to have it on the floor, like I said, so I'm going to step on it with my foot. You can't see it, but just so I can play. So that was all me pressing a button, not using a pedal. Because really all a pedal is it goes from 0 to 127, the full range, and you can just alter how quickly you do that. But if you're always going wah, 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 when I pressed the control switch, a notice appeared. No, I paused. I think I paused. So there's a couple things. Let me see. It was like this on the AX8. Let me just double check real quick. Maybe they don't have it right now. But on older gear, I don't know what notice you saw. If it was this, I'm pretty sure I manually did it. I think they took out the ability, so when you adjust the front panel on older gear, it did pause it if you adjusted the front panel, just because it would have to sync up. If you're constantly changing values, it would cause a lot of syncing. Synchronization. Okay, press my control switch. On the FM3 screen? Is that what you meant? Sorry, I thought you meant on edit. If that's what you mean, on the screen itself, yes, that's default behavior. For momentary, it doesn't quite make sense. For latching, people wanted, it was a request, I believe, people wanted to see if I press a control switch, I want to see that it turned on, so it would appear on the screen. So for momentary, it's like on and off. I'm not sure if there's a way to change that. I think there's a way to like adjust how long it stays on. Let me look real quick. I don't remember. Okay, yeah, I don't think there's a way to turn that off, but you can change it from 1 second to 5 seconds. Yeah, that's exactly why. So the onboard switch, the only place for it to show up would be the FM3 screen. With the FC, it should be appearing on the FC's screen at the top. And it is on mine. So if you look on your FC screen, when you press your control switch, it should be going like on and off. So you can see if I use my FC, it's not appearing. But if and you can see the light flickering, right? I'm using it, but if I use it on board, that's where it appears. So yeah, it's linked to whatever physical device where you're pressing the switch. So yeah, that's what that is. Yeah, no problem. right. Yeah. So if you guys have any other questions, if you've just joined, I'm just casually hanging out. We'll go for a little bit more if there's any questions. But yeah, any questions you have about how things work and whatever. Just like that. So channels and scenes kind of confuse me. Why have channels if you have scenes? Yeah. A lot of other gear, they only have presets. So if you want to change a sound, you just have a preset change. You change a preset. You want a chorus to be added, you either turn it on individually or you change presets. Channels actually came first. So sometimes understanding why they came to be helps understand how to use them. So channels came first on the Axe2, and there was X and Y. There were two channels. And channels let you change the sound or all the settings of a block, either completely or just subtly, however you want to do it. So in this case, I have on channel A in my amp block, scenes load quicker than presets. Yep, that's true. But presets don't take that long, but yeah, they are faster. But here's the reason you want to use both, or potentially want to use both. So I have a clean sound here, I think. Yep, on channel A of my amp, I have a clean sound, right? And on channel C, I have a distortion amp. If there weren't channels, if channels were not a thing, I'd have to change presets to get a new amp sound, right? So you following me so far? Channels allow you, in this case, just as a very distinct example, channel A is clean. Sorry, had that covered. Channel A is clean. Channel C is distortion. I haven't left the preset. I've only changed the channel in the amp block, right? So most blocks all have channels. And so I can change cabs at the same time. I can change EQ types at the same time. A versus B, you know, very different. I can change delay types at the same time, right? So let's say I want to use channels. And let's say I have, let me just revert this so it's back to normal. Let's say I have a clean sound here, right? Now let's say I want to change to a distortion tone with no pitch block and no delay. No, sorry, let me do this again. Let's say we want to change to a distortion tone with a different delay than what's here. We'll keep it simple. So if I only had channels to use, what I would have to do is either with switches or on clicking on edit, I'd have to first change the channel of the amp and then change the channel of the delay and then change the channel of the filter and then change the channel of the EQ. You know, I'd have to do all these things individually. It works. So now I have a longer delay. I've changed to distortion amp and whatever else I changed, right? I changed the EQ type. But you'd have to press each thing. So that's where scenes come in. Now, if I want to go back to my clean tone, I have to go to the delay block and change it back to channel A. Go to the EQ block. I mean, it's not on, but just for example, go to change it to channel A. Go to the amp block, change it to channel A. I have to press things 3 times to do that. With scenes, scenes can change the channels in all blocks at the same time and can also turn blocks on and off at the same time. So even just turning things on and off, let's say in this setup right now, I have amp, pitch, and delay on, right? Let's say I want to turn off pitch and delay at the same time and turn on the EQ. Again, I'd have to double click each block or click each foot switch, one for each thing. Turn off the delay, turn off the pitch, turn on the EQ. That's 3 switches. With scenes, I can set it up so one switch hit or one scene change does all of that at the same time. And that's exactly what I have set up in my main preset here. In scene 1, I have my clean detune. And then in scene 2, I have my clean lead. Now, watch this block info Everything's pretty much on A, channel A here, right? So just watch this top row. I'm going to change to scene 2. This stayed on A, the EQ turned on, the delay changed to C, and the pitch turned off. So with one button using a scene, I turned off a bunch of blocks, turned on some blocks, and changed channels with some blocks, and didn't change channels with other blocks. If I only had scenes, they would only turn blocks on and off. And that's that was a big idea, actually, the initial idea, I think, for scenes, just to turn a bunch of things on and off at the same time, back with the Axe3 Ultra and the MFC and those sorts of controllers. With one switch, or that's where the concept came from, I should say. With one switch, I can turn off all the delays and EQs and turn on the pitch, right? But because we have channels, we can also drastically change the sounds if we want. So here we have amp 1 on my A sound, which is clean. But to do a drastic change without changing presets, I can click scene 5 and my amp 1 should change to channel C. So the amp has changed channels, but also the delay turned off, the pitch block turned off. I think that's it for that one. But we could have had the drive turn on if we want the drive to come on with this scene. So that's why you need both channels and scenes. That's why you need both channels and scenes. Channels allow you to drastically change the sound if you want, and you can do those manually. I can leave everything the same and just change the amp channel. So let's go back to my scene 1, which is a clean chorus, clean. And if I wanted to, I could just change the amp channel. But just changing the channel, the pitch is still on, the delay is still on to a certain setting. With scenes, I can change all the blocks channels if I want at the same time, or don't change them. And I can turn blocks on and off. That's the power of scenes. And the thing is, you can do that easily with another preset. Just copy the preset over, turn on and off, and change the channels that you want to do, and just change presets. And that's how you had to do it on the Axe3 Ultra and the Axe3 when it first came out. Firmware 9 in 2012 of the Axe3, that's when we got scenes, and that's when everything changed. I didn't need 5 presets for a gig anymore. I needed 1. I could do everything with 1 preset, and I still do, mostly to this day. With just 1 preset, I have all my sounds. So actually, I'll leave that block info on. I'm just going to run through my scenes real quick, and you can see how drastically I can change it with scenes and channels at the same time. So I'm changing scenes, but the scenes are changing channels for me. No delay there, and then this one. And I don't think I have much here. Yeah, I didn't do 7 and 8. I don't use those. But yeah, I have 6 distinctly different sounds using scenes and channels to change those things without leaving the preset. And I only use this preset at majority of my gigs. If I change presets, it's to copy it to somewhere else and add like a phaser for one song that we're going to do that night, or something like that. Or I quickly change a setting and then really just reload the preset again so it's back how I saved it. But I mean, just watching all these details as they change. Everything's on A. Now some things are on C and some things turned on and off. Now I'm on amp B. Some things turned on and off. That's the power of channels and scenes. So if you want to use just channels and press a bunch of buttons, you can do that. But if you want to press one button, you can use scenes to change it. So yeah, at first it's sort of like, it's like a hierarchy sort of thing. When you just have presets, let's pretend we only had presets. There's no scenes, there's no channels. When you have preset 400, that's my clean sound. Then I would make preset 401. That would be my clean lead sound, and I'd adjust all the blocks. Then I have preset 403. That's my crunch sound. Different amp, different blocks, different settings. You can still do that. You can always use presets. But if you want to sort of use fewer presets, and what's the advantage of that? Well, one, if I stay in preset 400, which I do, everything I use is in here. If I change to another preset, maybe the EQ got moved to the front, or the delay is somewhere in a different line or something. For me, staying with one preset as much as possible, it helps me like visualize what I'm actually working with. I'm just using these blocks. There's nothing else. If I go to like a factory preset, boom, all of a sudden there's a phaser, this is in this order, the cab's over here, the amp's over here. Like, that's, to me, confusing, unless you make your own presets and you put them in the same order and everything like that. But I like staying with one preset. Everything's here. All I do is change channels and scenes and things like that, and I get all the sounds I need without having to jostle through presets. Go to the preset menu, remember what preset was what. And this also gives you the ability, if you want, a lot of people do this, is use like preset per song. They use a preset per song that they perform. So preset 400 could be Unchained, you know, and they put all the blocks they need in there for that. And if there are sound changes in that song, they use scenes and channels to change the sounds that they need, up to 8. Then they do the next song in their set list. He moves to the next preset. You know, I don't know, name a song, AC/DC song, whatever. He changes everything just for that preset and uses the scenes in there, and everything's there. You're not jumping between presets. You're just changing scenes. Next song comes up, next preset, whatever that song is, and so on. So that's another approach that you can use if you want. Don't need to. You don't need to. A lot of people start with the Axe and ask me for help, and they say, oh man, I want to use scenes and channels right now. And I said, well, do you know what they do? And they're like, no. I said, okay, just use presets for the next week. Make 5 presets or 4 presets, whatever, and just use those. And then they do that, and they go, oh man, I'm really having trouble like balancing all the levels in all the different presets, and I end up using the same 3 sounds anyway. I don't need like all these presets. So then we copy everything into one preset for them, and they just change scenes, and boom, they're done. One preset for their gig, or majority of what they do. So definitely worth checking out and learning about. It's a great way to do it, but you don't need to. You can use presets. You can just stick to presets if you want. Man, when you don't play, you forget everything. All right. So yeah, I guess I'll wrap up in a few more minutes. If anyone has some last second questions or something, we can talk about that. But yeah, 10-minute warning. Let's go with that. But thanks so much if you have been watching. If hopefully this has been helpful. I know I've helped a few specific people out, but if you're just watching, hopefully you've learned something as well. There's a lot in these fractal units. It's so great. I definitely prefer them myself, of course, clearly. But yeah, have my catch-all preset, make another when there's something specific. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a great way to approach it. And I think that was the design sort of implementation in general. with the Axe3, the third generation of everything. More power, so you can put more things in a preset on the Axe3, and then you use scenes to change things, and you don't have to use as many presets. And then the FM3 does all it can in such a small package as well. So, I mean, I've pretty much filled this one up as far as the FM3 is concerned. On the Axe3, I added a couple of different blocks just because I had extra room, but nothing's like fundamental. Like it's an extra pitch effect or a plex delay, actually. Things like that. There's not much I feel I'm missing from the FM3 personally. You can run out of CPU on any device ever, even computers. So, yeah. Yeah, and we have a ridiculous number of available presets. Yeah, there's 512 presets on the Axe3 and FM3. They just announced the Axe3 Mark II, which I think doubled the preset availability. So many people are asking for more presets. They just want thousands and thousands of presets, and that's so cool. That's totally cool. I use just one preset, so for me, using more than 500 presets, or even just having them on the unit, for me, I don't need that functionality. That's just me. We have some, I'm sure, touring people who play with multiple bands around the country or whatever, different artists in recording studios, and they want to keep everything on the unit. But even with a computer, like, you know, a lot of computers these days only have 128 gigs of memory on it. And that's not a lot. Just the base unit uses like 4 to 10 gigs. And you run out of things. If you put your pictures on it or your recording software, of course, you're going to use 128 gigs like that. And it's like, oh, I wish I had more memory. So yeah, they have computers with more memory, but at any point, you're always going to run out of memory. That's why you buy external hard drives or you use cloud storage or something. I think memory management is just something in the 20th century we've all had to, at some level, learn or work with. Even if you have a 2 terabyte computer, I have a friend, I help her with her computer. She does music production, and we just make sure her computer is always running well. And she has a 2 terabyte hard drive, and it's full. And she's like, oh, I need more. I said, well, what do you have on here? And we looked, she has all her projects from like 2001, 2002 or whatever. They're all still on there. And I said, when's the last time you accessed this? She's like, oh, I never touch those, but I just like to have it. I said, well, you can have it. Let's put it on an external hard drive, or let's even put it in the cloud or something, backup software. Let's just put it somewhere else and not on your main hard drive. And you can access it anytime you want. You just plug in the hard drive. And she's like, oh, but plugging in the hard drive, you know, that's so much work. It's not, especially for something you said you never ever touch. We did it. We put like a terabyte of stuff basically on an external, and her computer runs faster because, you know, there's so much more free space. She's more creative because she can just add stuff. She's not like, ooh, I have 5 gigs left. What documents can I delete? She doesn't need to worry about that. She can like use it. And I feel the same way with like the fractal stuff and any gear, really. If you have 512 presets and it's full, maybe it's time to export some of those off and put it on a computer for later. Now, if you truly need access to 500 presets daily, I mean, I wouldn't want that personally. That's a lot. There's probably ways you can manage that, but you know, if you need it, you need it. And now there's the Mark II with more preset space. There you have it. So you get that. But generally speaking, there are ways to sort of offload stuff that you're really not using, especially the factory presets. I mean, again, if you do this, that's fine, but there's some that say they just need the factory presets on there. They don't want to delete it in case they're at a gig and need it. And I said, when's the last time you went through the factory presets? Oh, I never did. Well, then how are you gonna use them? Are you gonna at the gig when you emergency need something, like go one by one and next preset? Like, I mean, that's not gonna happen, I'm pretty sure. So you're really just wasting over 300 spaces by keeping those on there with something you've never used or never gonna use. That's just my opinion. I've been doing this a long time. That's my opinion. If you want them on there, of course, it's your machine. Do what you want. And if you need more presets, get the Mark II Axe3. Go ahead, get it. And you have room for more presets. But I mean, I can't even see me realistically using more than 100, even if I had 5 projects. That's just me. I don't even want to think about that many presets personally. Like keyboard patches, I can see because keyboards, synthesizers have so many different things, but guitar is pretty simple compared to that. Of course, you can do crazy things. So if I don't know what I'm talking about, that's totally fine. That's just my opinion on it. But I've been rambling for a while. And yeah, like I said, if you have any more questions, maybe I'll do one more if anybody has something, if you've just joined. I've just been casually hanging out, answering some questions. We got a lot of work done today. But yeah, I've been going for about 2 hours. Get your question in real quick if you have anything. Otherwise, I am going to sign off for the day. Yep, I could do that. Can I explain views? Very simple. Views are great. Hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Like I said, today's a casual hangout, just talking, answering questions. So a layout is what you have for your foot switches on the FC controllers and the FM3, right? A layout has 12 switches in it. Each switch can have a tap and a hold function. But there are always 12 switches in a layout. Right now we're in layout 6, it has these 12. We go to layout 1, it has these 12, and so on. Views were sort of created around the concept of an FM3 only having 3 switches. There are only 3 physical switches, but there are 12 switches in the layout. So it would have worked, but it would have been a little unfortunate if we could only access just 3 of the 12 switches because our unit physically only has 3 switches. But they added views to layouts. So a layout has 12 switches. Right now we're looking at this graphic here as an FM3. So we only have 3 physical switches, right? Because I only have 3 physical switches, I can only do these 3 things. But a view allows me to change sort of the window, that's why they call it a view, the window of view, excuse me, on the switches. So in view 1, I see these first 3 switches, and I have these 3 settings. Let me go to a layout that actually has stuff. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm on my scenes layout, happens to be called scenes. It happens to be adjusting scenes. You can change anything to do anything. But right now I can only see these 3 things, clean, detune, clean lead, and so on. If I change views, I just shift the group of 3 of 12 that I'm looking at. So if I do that, now I see these 3 switches. These 3 scenes are now viewed. If I change views again, I go to these 3 switches. And physically here, they are changing. So they're going to match what you see. Right? Boost, triple, USA, that's what I call my scenes. This view, fast, clean detune, clean lead. Are there videos on recording and reamping? Not on my channel. I sort of focus on tutorials of basics, setup, that sort of thing. Definitely just search Axe3 reamping or FM3 reamping or something like that on either YouTube or Google, whatever. Or the forum, of course, you'll find it. They are definitely out there, but I don't do that. I don't work with recording too much myself. But back to views, that's what it is. It's just changing what 3 switches you're looking at a time. And they physically change what the buttons do, on the screens there. So that's one way to use it. You can assign switches to change views on here. Yeah, that's why the views are dimmed. Oh, I see. Yes, so if you plug your FC12 into your FM3 and you have it show as an FM3, that's why they're dimmed out. I think you can still work with them, but that's why they're dimmed. If you're showing this as an FC12, boom, then they come up. Isn't there something in the settings that allows you to make your rig sound like it's recorded on tape? I'm not sure if there's something like to specifically sound like tape. Am I still going? My preview went away. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's there. It's just the preview went away. I don't know what that means. Like on recorded tape, I don't think so. But what you might be referring to is in the cab block, there is a preamp setting or modeling modulation. There's a preamp modeling. So what this does is it emulates like you're plugged into. Hey, no problem. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. It models like a very nice mic pre at a studio, and with this you can add some drive and saturation to sort of the preamp sound. But I don't know if there's anything specifically to sound like you're recorded on tape. That might be a specific effect that someone else made, but I don't think there's like a general effect like that on these. I'm pretty sure. Unless I'm misunderstanding the question. Yeah, I don't think that's it. Or they have that. Sounding analog is still only going to be a digital approximation of the sound. Sure. But, I mean, when's the last time you heard something analog? Like, even if they record it to tape and then you listen to it on iTunes, you're hearing a digital representation of it. The only way to hear something truly analog is to record it on tape through analog cables and listen to it on tape through analog connections of speakers. I mean, I think that's long gone by now. I would say majority of the music listeners today, because there's so many young people with Spotify and iTunes accounts, have never heard like a reel-to-reel tape ever. And I just think that's how it is. I think we're there. We've surpassed that moment in time, and we're not going back, where many people can listen to a tape, a physical tape or record. I mean, I guess people are into records these days, but again, the whole chain would have to have been analog, you know, from recording it onto analog tape and then getting it over to the record production, like physical record. But there's so much digital, everything's, you know, pretty much moved to digital in the mainstream way of doing things. And I mean, I don't have a problem with it personally. Things sound the way they sound. And I think analog stuff and like tape and records sound a certain way is because those resources are finite. Like, I remember using 8-tracks and cassettes, you know, back when I was younger. And at a certain point, my Animaniacs tape that I listened to in the car physically broke. Like, the tape broke from playing it so much, or the record scratched, or, you know, got dust in it and you couldn't hear the sound anymore. And so back then you would just get another copy of the tape. But I don't know if it's like, you know, the environment sort of thing, but like, that's hard because it's a physical object. And well, one, I mean, there's many monetary benefits to going digital. I can do this sort of thing. This is digital. I can stream to tens to thousands of people if that many people want to tune in at the same time. Before, I would have to make a copy of a VHS tape 1,000 times and mail them out physically for people to see it. Like, digital, I feel, has its uses and its positives, of course. But I don't know. Like, people are listening to digital remasters of old bands, and at a certain time it's like, ooh, a digital remaster? I want that. why? Then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, digital's bad, I want analog. You know, it's a lot of people, stuff comes out and you're for it, and then you learn something and then you're against it. I just like to use what is available and to play music, and that's all. Like, I'm not really trying to change the world or anything. I just sort of analog emulating things being an effect. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about as far as like analog emulation. I mean, like there are delay types that are like analog style delays. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but there's no like block, boom, sound analog. Like, I don't even know what that would sound like. I like fractal too. Yeah. And I mean, I just happen to be a fractal only channel. I've used other gear. Other people use other gear. It's totally fine. We can all use tons of things just to, if anybody's thinking that way, no, we can use whatever we want. I just happen to teach fractal stuff. All right. So yeah, I think I will call it a day at this point. Thanks so much for everyone who was watching and hang out. Yeah. So just a real quick thing about my channel. Of course, the crazy things happened this year, and I had so many ideas back in February, and then everything started hitting in March. So it's been a little dead as far as this channel is concerned. I had video ideas. I have a website that's so out of date right now. It's always out of date. I have to update that. But yeah, feel free to watch more. I don't have too much right now. I was trying to do some stuff a couple months ago, but then my day job just got crazy with everything going on in the world. I just had to focus there. But yeah, thanks so much for checking it out. Yeah, thanks everybody for watching. If you were watching and didn't say anything, that's okay too. But thanks for watching. Again, this was a casual hangout, just me rambling on, noodling, and waiting for your questions. I'd like to find a day or so that I could do this regularly. Right now, I don't have that, but I'd love to just turn on the computer, turn on the stream. People can come in and ask a bunch of questions, and I can show some stuff. Because I noticed we have a lot of new users for Fractal stuff on the forum, and I just want to help people out. It's hard to do it over text sometimes, so if I can show them and they can grab a stream, that would be great. But thanks for watching. I'll update the forum when I do the next one. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop it in my thread, and I'll see if I can do a stream on it. But yeah, that's it for today. Again, thanks so much for watching. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe. Take care out there. Just stay safe. Very important. But I'll see you guys next time, and see you on the forum, of course. Laters.